day. Nice weather.
Yes, today is the first beautiful day.
Yeah.
Yeah, since I got here.
Yeah.
It was rainy when I kind of got here.
It's also a bit fresh.
Yeah.
Fresher,
Oh, it's
the
great.
beginning was really.
My role in the film is Peter Latang, and I come back to my hometown to take care of my grandma's affairs. She's just passed away, and I'm coming from New York. I just want to get in and get out, and I end up losing my wallet right when I arrive, and I have to figure out how to get back to New York and kind of get out of there, and I'm having trouble, and I have to call on my old friend who lives across the street, Donald. And so the day begins, this 24-hour period begins with Donald, spending this day with him. I mean, I was just back in Boonville, and just being at my parents' house, has a feeling, it has this emotional sense of sort of returning to an older identity that, like, you sometimes don't really want to return to. You grow, you move on. And I think that's in the film. Kris actually doesn't talk about a specific Donald, but he had some of the same experiences happen to him that happened in the film. And then there's also our other collaborator, Kyle Espolita, who's also from Boonville. And he is familiar with it and talks about. I mean, it's a personal film for all of us, and certainly for Kris. I mean, that Rhode Island, that Warwick, that's where he grew up. His baby is in it. It's like his wife is in the restaurant scene. It's like it's all very, very personal. The van, Donald's van, was the car that Kris was driving at the time. It has since died. I mean, this is really, homemade in that sense. But then we were just blessed by like the snow that hadn't fallen like that for 3 years. So that came 5 days before the production, and also returned for our couple of days of reshoots. So, I mean, there's a lot of magic, but yeah, it's all part of the aesthetic of the film. I mean, we really held a cancer benefit. The money that we raised for that benefit, we sent away. And those were just all friends and people from Rhode Island that came out to that benefit, and that's why it had the feel it did. There weren't so many people; it wasn't a huge crowd, but that's kind of how those things are, Yeah, we always relied on like that reality, and yeah, I mean, we went up a couple of weeks before production, started scouting those locations, the tunnel, the restaurant. The football field. It's like Donald's house, his room. I mean, that was worked out. The posters were put up on the wall, but yeah, I mean, we were just kind of using the world that was given to a large extent. Began as a short film that I guess we made in 2012, and we had been making shorts, the three of us, for quite a long time. We were a little bit stuck, and we really wanted to shoot something, and it was actually Kyle who had the original idea to have Kris and I just, let's go shoot. I'm going to tell Jesse one thing, I'm going to tell Kris one thing, but I'm not going to tell each other. And let's just make you guys old friends, and let's just see what we can kind of create through an improvisation. That was the original idea. And then as the days leading up to it, Kris started to think, oh, okay, well, what are the dynamics between these friends? What can sort of start to happen? And that's when that story kind of came, the idea that, like, at first you kind of think Donald is crazy, and you really identify with Peter, and then through the course of the short, it flips, and you kind of realize, oh, Peter, maybe wasn't so nice to Donald, and that, your sort of identification jumps a bit. And that was the turn that we really found that we were interested in. And once we found those characters, we thought, okay, we can build, a feature around this. And that's what we had been trying to do for quite a while. Like, Kris and I had been working on a script for 2 years before that called Harry Nights. And, trying to prepare a feature that we knew that we could make for a little amount of money, that we could shoot with our team. But yeah, once we made the short, people responded to it, and we were like, okay, we can build this. The writing process was really, because we're all separated by space too. Kris lives in Rhode Island. I live in New York. Kyle lived in New York at the time. Now he lives in LA. So the three of us would just talk on the phone. We would talk, and we would talk about these different scenes, how it can develop, what can happen. Kris would go and write dialogue, write a scene, send it to us, and then we would say, oh, that works, maybe that doesn't. And through that process, over the period of about 2 years, the script formed. And once we were really shooting, that was when it was a bit more, it was great that we could speak in such a shorthand kind of way. And so we didn't have to explain a lot because we all kind of understood where we were going to be. We had all been working so much on it. We knew the story and the characters very well. When Kris was acting, Kyle would be watching us. He could give us direction. Kris could tell me things. I could tell him things. I mean, we all worked together. We just had confidence, because it wasn't this team that was brought together. It was people that we knew. So we knew that we were all gonna take care of each other. We knew that it could work that way. And we also believe in I can definitely say for myself. I mean, what chance and spontaneity and improvisation. I mean, the stuff you get from that. It's still, you just can't get it anywhere else, So I definitely, rely on that in terms of, especially thinking about acting. I mean, that's the joke, is that Kyle and Kris love, kind of bothering me and seeing what I'll do. And so that was part of that original improvisation, is to let's see how we can kind of bug Jesse. We're really into all different types of movies, We love documentaries, we love fiction, we love big comedy, but we really it's always important for us for it to be very real. That's part of what makes it funnier and more painful, so that it isn't just jokes, but then it's, you're in a place that isn't necessarily so funny. Our cinematographer, Sam Fleischner, comes from a real documentary tradition as well. He made a great film, Stand Clear of the Closing Doors, which is New York based, but really kind of uses that similar aesthetic. So that really helped with that. But we always just wanted to use, just real places. We just had to go and knock on the funeral home's door and just, ask them, can we, just shoot in here? Can we use this? Can we go to the bowling alley? We could find all those locations. And that also was built into how we wanted to make the film, which was small. There's no sets. We're not bringing, snow is not falling. We were using the resources that we had. So I think that's also built into how we learned how to make films, was to work with the places that we had, the people that we had, friends of ours or actors in it. I mean, we used our resources. So I think that's part of it. Frank Heath, who's the editor, and he was the first person in our rough cut. He was the first person, once he really started editing, to kind of start pulling back a lot of the stuff that I was kind of doing, that really started making everything Donald was doing that much funnier. Because I think in the first early cuts we were just kind of focused there, but once you kind of just are dealing with me, suffering with me. I love the word you use, suffer. I mean, that's definitely important. It's that's great, if there was a little element of that, because it has to be there.